is no longer cool. Now it's cool. Was it ever something that we decided to tackle from the root?
Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Rabin.
Welcome to the tie-in.
This week, we have Samuel Rubin on. It is a fantastic conversation with him. We've known him for a while, and we're talking about activism, social impact, collaboration, and a lot of things, actually. It was a great conversation.
Oh, totally. He was one of the top guys when we even started the podcast. I was like, we need to get Samuel on. We've interfaced with them in so many different areas and organizations, and he's a real trailblazer in the industry. And we finally nailed him down and got him on. I think we just had to change the date a couple of times here and there, and we got him. So, yeah, really great conversation. Lots of stuff to think about there.
Yeah. We've definitely known him in a lot of different veins. He's out there. He's out, all over. He's probably at COP right now. COP's going on in Brazil, COP 30, big climate conference, world leaders, all of that. We know probably, I know Lydia Dean Pilcher's there. There are a lot of folks talking about climate and culture. That's on radar more and more. So that's wonderful.
I mean, they're so connected, and I really, really do believe that the revolution is going to be led by a cultural revolution. I mean, this has been in the past, but it's going to be again. I mean, this is what we need to be doing here, and I think film, entertainment, and just and the people behind it and watching it are going to be leading it. So I'm excited.
Culture, industry leads culture broadly. Yeah. 100%.
Right? And what's that expression? Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah, right. I know.
At least in the startup world, yeah.
It's so interesting, startup world. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about leadership recently. It comes up a lot in various contexts, but I hear people in other industries talking about it a lot. And I hear our industry people say we need leadership, or we need to get leadership on board, but it's just in it. We don't talk about what it takes to be a good leader and cultivate good leadership skills. And I've been thinking a lot about that and how we can do that.
Yeah. I guess coming from the tech and business world on my end, it comes up a lot around leadership, or even how to start a business, and then culture, building culture, a big thing around raising capital, for example, for the business, right? Still comes down to the leader, and also you can have different types of leadership, right? I mean, we've referenced it here on this podcast, but it's you can be the visionary leader out in front. You can be the leader from behind, from beside. There's different leaders within organizations, right? So it's not always CEO person out in front. There's so many different ways to show up as a leader. But I think the biggest thing is that regardless of the organization, part of being a leader is to beat the drum and lead that strategy and make sure that every single person within that organization is aligned and moving in that same direction. And that's hard to do. Easier said than done.
Yeah. But 100%. Yeah. I mean, I've been talking about it such that, like you said, it's not just the person on top with a particular title. It's, any and everyone in the organization who steps up to take some kind of ownership of what's going on around them and helps, collaborate, manage, engage with the people they work with, right? And it's just a positive influence on people around them, as they're working toward a common goal or deliverables or whatever it is. So we, Green Spark Group is launching a survey to capture some of the qualities that folks out there in the film and TV industry see, as positive leadership qualities. And when things have gone wrong, what what was lacking, right? What leadership qualities were lacking. And so, shout out, we'll put
Who are you
a
sending it
link.
to?
Oh, all sorts of folks in the film and TV industry. Yeah, we are blasting it
Okay.
out. It's kind of an end of year wrap up, collect some insights from folks.
Yeah.
So, be on the lookout. I'm sure it'll be on our website and all our social media and everything. We'll
Yeah.
put maybe here a link to
And
it.
it'll be anonymous. So anybody can participate, whether it's a gaffer or whether it's a senior executive.
That's right.
A rigger for live event production.
Yep, any and all. You do not have to put your name. It can be completely anonymous. If you want to, you can, but that's not required. And there will be a space in there to give more context around, a particular leadership quality or what worked, so that you can share a bit of the context, the story. So, we hope folks engage with it and share, and it'll just provide insight. We hope to share the results, and just kind of really hone in. And if we need leaders in all aspects, right? So we want to figure out what it takes.
Well, and Samuel Rubin's interview is exemplary of a leader and an unconventional leader and his impact, right? So I think that's it'll be really, really excited for you all to hear that interview.
Yeah. Well, and like we always say, and we really appreciate those who do, like and subscribe to the podcast, share it with someone. We've got a ton of great episodes out there. We've been doing this for like a year and a half. We've talked to a lot of really cool people doing interesting things. So do share it around and
go back through our back catalog now and find something that resonates, because holy moly, there's some good stuff in there.
There's some good stuff. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we're speaking with Samuel Rubin. He's a social impact practitioner and climate activist working at the intersection of culture, storytelling, and environmental advocacy. He co-founded the Entertainment and Culture Pavilion in 2023 and leads international events at COP. He served as a founding member of the UNFCCC Entertainment and Culture for Climate Action Initiative and co-founded the Hollywood Climate Summit in 2019. Recognized by Grist, 50 Fixers, and Forbes, Samuel mobilizes global movements through cultural narratives and grassroots organizing, fostering radical joy and collective climate action. Wow, amazing. Samuel, welcome.
Welcome.
And so just to start off, we've known you for a while now, and you do a lot of things. You bring a lot of people together, but tell us who Samuel Rubin really is and what motivates you.
It's such a pleasure to be here, first and foremost, because I have great admiration for you both, and any excuse to spend some time together, it's good, even if it's an opportunity to be here with you in the podcast. I think, I'm a little bit contradictory sometimes, because I know I can come across as a very loud Spaniard, and my Jewish ancestors probably added some to the spice. Well, but I'm also quite shy and very sensitive, which is a good complement and balance to my revolutionary activism. I like to at times question a little bit the status quo of things in a loving, gentle way, and sometimes a more spicy way. But I'm also very casual and normal, and I really love just being with my friends, with my family, and I think that the Mediterranean heritage in me of always feeling at my best when I have good food, good company, and a good landscape to put it all together. So yeah, I don't know if that reveals too much or nothing.
It's perfect.
That's a good, that's a good background. Good background. So I'm curious, when did you
kind of know that you wanted to work in climate activism? Was there a specific moment or what really sparked that? And then why entertainment?
Well, I started in entertainment at a very young age. I was a child actor, actually. When I was 13 years old, I was like my parents, they were so exhausted with me. God bless them. I might look like I have a lot of energy now, but multiply it for 100 when I was 13 years old. And so my parents were coming up with all the possible ideas to exhaust me by the time of arriving home. So if they could get some extra energy out of me after finishing classes at school, they will definitely contemplate it. And so they signed me up for theater classes, kind of like after, regular school hours. And the theater teacher at that time was working in a couple projects, and she mentioned someone that was looking for a young actor that that might fire, and one thing led to the other, and then boom, I'm working in theater in Spain with some great directors we have here that do some incredible work and very much focus on social impact. How can storytelling transgress boundaries, provoke people to think differently of things that are taboo or might be difficult conversations. And so that was like my introduction to social impact entertainment in a very experiential way when I was also growing up and forming my own ideas and my own ideological thoughts. No, that was also around the same time when I was 13 years old, when the Occupy Wall Street movement was really exploding. No, and being uh, Spaniard who grew up in a public school, going to a single payer healthcare system, and really understanding that the welfare of government is holistically interconnected with how you can develop as a person and the right you have. Of course, that moment of protest in the midst of the economic crisis led me to find my voice as an activist, organizing community, and so kind of both things overlap in this Venn diagram of impact producing and social impact entertainment. And over time, I figured out that my skill sets were more in the producing category, not in acting, which is a profession that I have so much respect for and admiration, and that I am happy not to be doing anymore. But by age 16, I was already solely producing, and the first documentary that I did was about the refugee humanitarian crisis that emerged after the war in Syria. At the time, we were having millions of refugees from the war in the Middle East, and I started filming in dozens of refugee camps all over the continent. And I spoke with many refugees that were not fleeing wars, but fleeing the climate back home, and that they were farmers, that they couldn't uh, live anymore in the territory that they grew up and so much love, no? And so, or people that were displaced after climate disasters and had no opportunity back home. And that really kind of like shocked me to think, oh, I always thought the climate crisis was about polar bears and, hacking the trees. And it, of course it's not. It's such an intersectional issue where people are at the center of it. And then growing up in the entertainment field and going to film school at UCLA and starting to do my own films, of course, I had the realization moment that you both had and many of us have in this field, which is like, oh my God, being on set is so wasteful,
Yeah.
and we are not really optimizing and making this in the most efficient way. And it's all interconnected in this circular model of, well, if you are efficient on set and people have more time, then you're thinking about their well-being. You're thinking about the way that they can grow outside of this project. So I think that's how over time in my film school day, I realized, oh, if I'm going to be a film producer, this has to be the path that I'm in, one that centers on sustainability, on social impact, and community building. And so The rest is already what you said on the intro.
Wow. That's incredible, Samuel. I actually didn't know this about you. This is fun. I mean, it's just fun, just even in the first little bit here to hear the background and the origin story. So you're right. We did have the same realizations, Zena and I, over the course, right? You can't be a living, breathing, aware person and not say something's not quite right here, or the waste is incredible, because other industries you would be fired if you created that much waste right out of the gate.
Yeah.
But also we talk a lot about storytelling, right? And I think that's something. How important has storytelling and the entertainment been in this narrative around climate and activism? Because it's taking you around the world, knowing how to tell this story. I think that's something really we talk a lot about and we explore in this podcast too. But yeah, go ahead, Zena.
Well, just sorry to interrupt, but just, like, and the words that you're using, that's another aspect of all this, right? Like, I'm just curious because I feel like recently words have started to shift. Does that impact how you're communicating, and like, can we dive into that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, for me, the way that I realized that storytelling changed my life personally is simply as a, gay man growing up, watching TV and seeing people like myself represented on screen, no? And realizing that I was one variation of so many people within my collective, within my community, and that I could learn so much and could dream and aspire to be whoever I wanted to be through the characters and their experiences on screen. No? And I think me now being 30 years old, I've been lucky enough to be in a moment in time in history where I could grow up with that representation following me along the way, and then see more and more versions of what that representation can look like, even though that there is still so much more room for growth, because of course no community, no gender, no intersectionality is a monolith, no? And that's what storytelling does, is expands the perspective of people into not fitting in a box. And that's what words do sometimes, is they create archetypes, they create stereotypes, but they can also break them when you're using them in a creative, authentic, meaningful way, because that's the part of a storytelling that is a skill set and an art. And it's not something that ChatGPT or AI is ever going to have, because it's part of the humane experience that we as beings live in unique ways. No? So I think storytelling unleashes that potential, but then to use the same example of, for example, LGBTQ representation on screen and how I feel about it, it's interesting to see that when you kind of like have it's with social impact, no? Like a consequence has a reaction, and a reaction has a response. And we do live now in a world that is so much more divided, where trans people are being killed at higher rate than they were 15 years ago, where there is homophobia online by people younger than me, that I'm like, wait a second, this you should have normalized this at this point, no? And I think it's kind of like the mystery of all of this is that if we don't do stories in a way that really ignite empathy, what we have is more division and polarization. No? And I think that's why some wars end up being um, so scary or so divisive, is because we live in a very reactionary society that doesn't have the time or the ability to, grow from each other, even in discomfort, even in disagreement, because we're not always going to agree with everyone, and that's okay. But that makes a good story. We need conflict for a good story. So we're not going to have an emotional arc if we don't have that journey as well. No? So I think that's why storytelling is both so necessary, but also at times it has been part of this inertia of emotion that we're stuck in.
Yeah, and polarization, right? Of course.
Exactly.
And just want to double click on then the next state, Zena's question, because what we come across a lot now is there's a reframing of some of the verbiage in climate right now, and it's the same as you mentioned. I'm obviously LGBTQ. Everywhere there's this, people are starting to drop certain terms that may have been politicized or not. So what we're seeing is there's a different, like, sustainability has kind of lost a little its teeth, and we don't even know what that really means. But also climate, and we're. And we know that none of these things are political, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when there's a hurricane in Louisiana that floods the city in New Orleans, that's not a political issue, right? That's an Earth human issue. But yeah, are you seeing this narrative changing in the language that people are using? Because you're now you touch you're global, really. At the end of the day, you're in Europe, you're here, you're participating in these big organizations. What are people saying on the ground? And because we're learning, we're trying to figure this out, Zena and I ourselves, right? What are we saying? What are we not saying? What words are relevant? What words are not relevant? And does it even matter? Who cares what words we're using?
That's such a great subset to the question that opens a whole other dimension of this, conversation. I think, I lived in LA for 10 years after, I went to LA for college, and then I've been there, worked with the Hollywood Climate Summit for 4 years. And, my father was born in LA, so I've always been very tied to this city that is so close to my heart. But, both in Los Angeles, Hollywood, California, the United States, and then North America, there is such a bubble, such a greenhouse effect of ideas and echo chamber of people that don't realize that the issues we're discussing are interconnected with realities that, as you mentioned, are global and connect with communities all over the world. And I think it's interesting because, with storytelling, when you look at the trends of entertainment in recent years, it hasn't been until a little bit less than 10 years that audiences have started consuming content in such an international distribution model. I mean, a lot of my American relatives and friends weren't reading subtitles in a movie more than 10 years ago. And now it's a very established fact that you might watch a Korean TV show and it's fine, you'll watch subtitles, it's okay,
Yeah.
So I think to the point of, the realities of different global dimensions, that's changing, but it's still not hyper aware of the fact that the majority of the challenges that are being discussed, North America is in certain instances both at the center of creating them and at the bigger responsibility of solving them, which is like this dichotomy between well, sure, if you pull out of the Paris Agreement and you are the United States, oh my God, the world is going to pay the consequences. But at the same time, we need you. You cannot live away because it. And even though that we know that the United States will be one of the global emitters worldwide, it doesn't exclude you from the responsibility either. So I'm going a little bit on a tangent, but to go back on the political correctness, I think it's connected in the sense that we don't want to really accept and do a little bit of self-reflection on what is it our accountability and our responsibility in a lot of these challenges. And I think that even now with, woke culture or sustainability is no longer cool, now it's cool. Was it ever something that we decided to tackle from the root? If we so easily now can change a term and walk away from it, maybe because one administration made it popular and then another administration doesn't make it popular, because those are things that should be, as you mentioned, apolitical, no? So it shouldn't matter, of course, that the political incentive, the policies around it do matter, but the intentions and the willpower should remain steadfast because you're talking about core values and principles that define who you are as a organization and so forth. So it's disappointing, but is it surprising? I don't know. I think this is also.
Or is it an opportunity to get to the root and reframe those conversations? And I think that's what you just, 100%. That's what I heard right there, right? I mean, it's you're right. Core values evolve and change, but they're pretty consistent, but it gives us an opportunity to have these dialogues and with an open heart and an open mind, because I'm okay with changing terminology, but as long as we all agree on what it means and what we're doing. Because I do have to think there has been a certain amount of, I hate the term about greenwashing and, it's like,
absolutely greenwashing.
It's like,
you don't have to say it. I'll say it. Yeah.
Right. It's like we need to evolve the conversation, and that's kind of what, talking to you again today, we were excited to sort of, get inside to your thought patterns around that.
Well, I think storytelling has become the new greenwashing in many ways. No, I do think that when I started in the sustainability space, and Zena was one of the first people that I met in this landscape, and I was so inspired by the sustainability pack that Green Spark Group convened with many others, and that was also kind of like a landscape to say all these issues are not mutually exclusive. They are part of interconnected. Issue, just like making a film is interconnected, and you have all these departments working together, no? And it never should be about either or. And now we've moved into a dimension where it's like, well, yeah, sure, we all had a net zero pledge. We all said what we were going to do about our emissions. But now let's just talk about climate stories. But yeah, sure. But what about your net zero pledge? Are you up to date with that plan? How is it going? How do we implement it? I don't think we need to choose our attention to one or another. And I do think that there is an optics problem with not being able to come out and say, I need more help, or I didn't meet that benchmark, I needed more time, or I miscalculated what my operations were going to be. And I think you, Zena, have seen that a lot in your line of work. No, but it's okay. We can be vulnerable. We can correct mistakes and work together. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also curious, I'm also curious with this, this work, a lot of work on storytelling right now. It's very popular as a subject to work on from, a lot of different stakeholders in our industry. I'm also wondering about how people are doing it and how, are they, because we've got this layer of politicization in there. We've got consequences that are coming from that sort of thing. We've got comedy that, has its own genre of storytelling and being affected in certain ways and canceled, and, outcomes coming from these sorts of things. Do you find that people are working from a place of true authenticity, or are they working from a place of fear so that they can survive in the current world we live in?
Yeah. I mean, I think it can be both in different occasions, no? But I think to the point of storytelling, storytelling is very important because when it comes to of course, we've already talked about what it does to people who watch it and the representation and so forth. But from a sustainability standpoint, all sustainability consultants that I collaborated with, they always share this moment of realization of reading a script and being like, wait a moment, there's no way around it. This is not going to be sustainable because the script in itself is already incompatible with how the,
world works.
the production can be, no? And I think that it's good because there was a moment in time where then the response to that problem was like, well, it's too late. The story is set. The script is not going to
Yeah.
change, and the sustainability consultant has nothing to say about that. So I appreciate reclaiming that agency and having this interconnected approach where people who might not be screenwriters themselves can also have a role in the storytelling development and change not the story but the way that it may be presented or expand the horizons of its vision, etc. So that's great, amazing. Sec. The issue in my opinion is when we do not go beyond climate stories matter, because of course they matter, climate stories matter, but if they matter when they, accurately represent the issue, not just when it's just a matter of placement, even though the placements are very important. Again, it's not either or, no? We are starting from a very low bar and lots of efforts should be welcome and appreciated, but those entities that have more resources, more capacity, and the ones who are quite honestly claiming the most bragging rights about doing the most, then those entities need to be very comfortable when they are held accountable for what they are bragging about, and I think this is where uh, it matters whether it be the fear or not of being held accountable. Maybe that's where a lot of the fear comes from. And then, of course, yes, storytelling can be a tool to resist fascism, to resist oppression. And so, of course, you become a target when you are a good storyteller. But who is the target? Well, who is the one targeting you? Well, it can be an authoritarian regime in many places of the world, can be a company that doesn't want you to move away from their narrative or their marketing plan. There is a lot of stakeholders who are not interested in this good storytelling unless they're the ones doing it. Then if it goes on their agenda, that's totally fine. No? And I think that's where we need to be very uh, cautious when we see people talking about storytelling and question things, and that's okay. It doesn't. It's about building trust and forging a relationship that is meaningful with the brands that you consume, with the people you work with the partners you collaborate with. I think I don't know if that answers a little bit your question, Gina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted us to shift gears just a little bit here. But how have you interacted with the stars and the talent as well? And how important is it to have their buy-in or not? Because I mean, it's always the age-old, right, dialogue. Neil Young flies over the tar sands or oil sands in Alberta and says, okay, like these are bad, right? Okay, cool. Or Leo or someone does something, but is that a form of activism, or is that just, I don't know. Yeah. Just them trying
I
to
think it
get on the
means
bandwagon.
it goes back of the authenticity. No, I think the public and people are more smart than we give them credit for, and they know when something is meaningful or when something is kind of like a little bit superficial. And I do think that when it comes to the issue of climate and climate change has been caused by a lot of inequities and a lot of disparities. And so, of course, people look at celebrities, and even if they themselves have massive attention on them and they have zero money on their bank account, because not every celebrity we know is rich, they still will look at them as, oh, you probably live a life of luxury. You probably have everything you want because because everyone knows you, know? And I think that assumption is many times incorrect. But it's very much connected for why I think some big celebrities and personalities are not the best ambassadors when it comes to climate related issues. Because, of course, if now Taylor Swift comes out and says everyone should take action, climate action, sure, great, everything that Taylor Swift touches is apparently mainstream, but people are going to come out and say, well, are you flying every day in your private jet? So is it going to have credibility? Probably not. So I think we have to ask people to be spokespersons for issues that they are likely to be credible on. And that's why a lot of celebrities don't want to speak to issues related to climate more broadly. That doesn't mean, given all the intersection that climate has, that celebrities cannot find a specific climate lens that they themselves has a connection with. No, like for Taylor Swift as an example, cool. I think she's from Tennessee or Nashville or some rural community area. No, like great. Talk about maybe like farmers in your community and the food that you eat that you like it to be safe and organic or whatever it is. You know, like there is a lot of lenses and specific issues.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be save the world because that also feels like such a daunting task and people cannot necessarily connect to that. But I think everyone is required in this fight to save the planet because we all live in the same planet, and hopefully those who have the most resources, yes, sure, your attention to this matter is appreciated, but if you do have a lot of money in the bank account, great, donate to some causes because the Sustainable Production Forum, all the different groups that are in this ecosystem, they can go a long way with a check of 5 digits, 6 digits, and they can be an anonymous donor. You don't need to put your name on it. It's fine, but I do wonder why we don't see more people in our industry that have the financial buy-in supporting this matter, because we cannot just rely on companies and non-profits. We also need the involvement of individuals, which in other issues is way more accepted, such as, for example, politicians. No, you see celebrities coming and giving money to whoever is running for president on their party. Well, let's also support the industry. Just as I was so happy to see many people donating to the Screen Actor Guild Union Fund when that was the moment to do so. No, let's also normalize supporting sustainability-related issues in the entertainment industry among these stakeholders who can do it.
Yeah. And not everything has to be public, right? Like not, if you don't want it to be, right? So there are different ways to do these things. And I think one thing that, and you said it, it's like, I think we all need to be comfortable with a level of hypocrisy because we're not perfect. Every one of us uses some kind of resource, right? Like in our lives, even the sustainability professionals, like we have a carbon footprint too, that kind of thing, right? And so it's not an all or nothing. It's like where do we fit and how can we do better and how can we use whatever resources in a way that's going to help sort of the greater good, whether that be the greater good of our industry or larger, global initiatives or whatever speaks to you. But I just think that we need to be comfortable with the fact that we do, live in this world that, there's a lot of systems working around us all the time that we cannot control or that we have, So anyway,
100%. I mean, all my friends who I don't work with, who know me and are in my core group, they're like, well, you're doing all this climate action related stuff, but you are flying so much. And I'm like, absolutely. You are 100% right. And I know that when we look at the emissions of a production, where those most emissions come from, travel, no? And that does have an impact and a cost. And is it hypocritical of me? Of course, until a certain extent, you have to question your own actions and be comfortable with, again, accountability, no? But I think this is where we also need to both look at our individual's action and hold it accountable and the big picture systemic challenges, no? And the reality is that, I have way more in common with someone that doesn't fly any time in a year than with Jeff Bezos, probably, or Elon Musk, And the point is not, um, billionaires versus, which I subscribe to this narrative, but I think it's more about understanding, well, people that have a certain level of privilege and comfort, and those who have the contradiction of having to fly for conferences, having to fly for work. A lot of times, if I'm being paid to do a workshop, and I have to use that money to pay my rent, I don't care where that workshop is. I need to pay my rent. I will get on the train or whatever it is because I need to do the work. I have to.
Yeah.
I'm not a trash fund baby. You know what I mean? But the point is, how do we are comfortable asking for systemic changes that we are going to have to subscribe to as well, such as, for example, in France now, they just banned flights under 2 hours that can be made via train. Great. I will happily advocate for this kind of policy changes, and I will happily take the Greyhound bus, which I do many times when I have to go from San Francisco to LA, 6 hours in a bus or whatever it is, because those are things that are accessible to me. But we also need to be asking for a specific policy change that we can subscribe to and that has the infrastructure behind it to support people of all working classes, especially the ones who, are working and need to do so in order to thrive. I think that's a lot of the barrier for many people when it comes to these questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, just kind of shifting gears, I'm curious, because you're working with, global organizations and bringing people together in sort of this big kind of macro nature. I'm curious, like what are you in that space? Like, what are you working on now? What are you excited about as you're kind of learning more, bringing more people together, kind of widening the umbrella in that space?
Well, I am very optimistic and hopeful with some of the global trends when it comes to culture-based climate action and culture-based solutions. We've been talking a lot about nature-based solutions in recent years, and of course, when it comes to the protection of biodiversity and the richness of our ecosystems, we need nature to be front and center tackling the climate crisis. But we know too that the work we do is a tool that needs to be at the disposal of fighting this quintessential, battle. And I think culture-based solutions being more front and center when it comes to policy settings like COP or UN conferences and national adaptation plans and other policy framework for climate change, etc., means more financial support, more policy incentive to do the localized work that we do in our everyday, communities. And so I'm hopeful going into COP30, for example, later this year, seeing that it is going to be my fourth COP. And when I went to COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt for the first time, and I walked into that room, and I was like, holy wow, this is massive, and I feel completely lost and out of place and like a transplant, being a cultural practitioner in this space. Now, 4 years later, culture is going to be recognized as a theme of COP for 2 days, November 12th, November 13th, named by the presidency as one of the 30 priorities on the COP action agenda for climate action as part of the human social development axis, together with health, together with food, together with employment and climate action. And I see that so many of us have been pushing from the sidelines, from the work we do in our organizations, to also encourage the Secretariat and other institutions like the UN and many others to recognize that it's so important to work with the creative industries in these matters. And it's a multi-stakeholder process. It's slow, it's messy, it's bureaucratic, it's annoying at many times, but now that I look at the 4-year plan viewpoint, I'm like, oh yeah, there is some progress. It's slow and it's not at the speed that, we want it to be. But there is now tangible evidence that things are moving towards the recognition of culture-based climate action. And I am very happy and pleased that, in 2023 with COP28, my second COP and so many others who helped that moment be possible, the Entertainment and Culture Pavilion carved a place at the Blue Zone, and that sends a message in the same blue zone that the oil petroleum exporting countries, the OPEC, has not one but two pavilions. So we have two pavilions dedicated to oil at the biggest climate conference, and we have no space representing people like the three of us, and so many others that are doing that work. So I think having those spaces is little victories. How we use them, how do we reclaim them? That's what we need to continue collaborating on.
Amazing. We're kind of nearing the top of the hour here. What is this? Sorry, something just popped up there. But what are you're working on a lot of things, but what are you working on like right now? And what does the future look like? Where are you continuing to be involved in COP? Do you have some bigger projects that you're percolating that you can disclose to us here? You're 30, right? You mentioned, which is still so young. I mean, I didn't realize you were 30. I mean, because we've known each other for, it feels like almost a decade when you were doing things a long time ago, but it probably was less than a decade. So yeah, what's the big vision and what's exciting you going forward as you look out into the next decade?
So it's 6 years, I'm thinking now, 2019. So it is closer to a decade. Right. But anyway,
time flies.
Yes,
I know.
I think, well, first of all, I feel like the world we live in goes so fast, and it's just so important to be responsive in our work. But I'm very excited now that with the Entertainment and Culture Pavilion, we have secured multi-year grants. We just received our 3-year grant for the Karmic Collective, and the Youth Climate Justice Fund to give us a 2-year grant. So I'm happy that we can start thinking a little bit more long-term vision. And the way that I envision this is there is so many incredible initiatives out there that are deserving of resources, deserving of attention, and the mutual aid network around it isn't at the same level that we deserve it to be, because we need to be able to lean on each other for experience, for insight, for collaboration, especially when it comes to the work that happens at different regions all over the world, in Canada, the US, all over the other countries. So I want to be able to contribute to that mutual aid support system through the lens of the ENC Pavilion at places that are so hard to have access, like, for example, a conference of the parties and UN conferences, etc. And I do think that gap, many more people are needed to help break it, and all the effort that people like Zena and so many others have done have been incredibly helpful in the progress that has been made so far. And we cannot stop, because the oil lobbyists are not going to stop. The people who are on a payroll for all the extractive polluting industries are not going to stop. So the fight continues, and the show must go on. Me personally, as a social impact practitioner, I'm always working with new campaigns and freelancing with different projects. This year, I had the pleasure to collaborate with Duck Society to coordinate the Global Climate Playlist, which has been an amazing one-year initiative that will finalize in December. And for every month, I've been coordinating, screening, showcasing films that the Climate Story Fund has supported. And I think that's another important thing about climate storytelling. Sure, we need climate story, but once they're out there, we need to watch them, we need to consume them, we need to distribute them, we need to spread the word about them. And so being part of that impact distribution process is very exciting to me. And now I'm also working in a new campaign for a film that I cannot disclose yet where will it be distributed at, but it will be a very exciting platform for the film to be available on. And it's a film for a campaign called Healthy Planet Now, and a documentary showcasing contributors from all over the world who film themselves from the front lines, showcasing how their health, well-being is connected to the climate we live in. And I think that's a lens that is very unexplored, because when it comes to our own health, we all know that if we're waiting for a medical result, or if we are worried about someone we love who is sick or has a disease, we cannot think about anything else. And that is the one number thing that we worry about. And I think we kind of have to put that mindset into our planet and realize that we as a planet also need to heal, need to take care, and therefore I think the connection between health and climate is also quite missing in a lot of conversation, just as culture climate is missing. And I think it speaks to we cannot be in silos. We cannot operate from the health community, the culture creative industry. No, we all also need to find ways to come together, and that's one of the exciting things about the COP Action Agenda this year, bringing all these teams together under the same human social development axis. So I'm excited about those projects coming up.
Awesome. Excited to see how everything plays out. I fully agree. There's more we can do when we're working together than, when we're siloed. So we ask all of our guests this, so I'm really curious to hear your answer. But if you were to create a new playbook and guiding principles about sustainability and entertainment, what would be first on your list?
As in terms of like an action or like a cue?
A guiding principle. What was the first guiding principle that would be on?
Well, I mean, that it's one that you and I have in common, and that I think, it's easier said than done, no? But it is truly radical collaboration. I think it's so important to accept that we cannot tackle this challenge without partnerships and without, allyship. And it requires class solidarity. It requires, leaning into ideology that you wouldn't be the first one to work with, while maintaining your principles and upholding your values. I think those are all comparable, no? But I think radical collaboration will be quintessential for any formula that we develop together.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Very cool.
And listening, right? And listening to each other.
Yes.
Without prejudice, without a predetermined answer.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and to that point, for radical collaboration, a lot of we're all very familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, but the inner development goals, which I know you are also familiar with, Zena, are also very necessary for radical collaboration. No? And I think that where active listening is a pillar for sure, because we all want to be heard, we all want to be seen. And so if we don't take that into account, how can we succeed truly together? No?
And just be better people in better society, doing, making things work for us all, right? So very good. Samuel Rubin.
Thank you, Samuel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, where can people find you and keep track of everything that you're doing?
Well, I'm very bad at keeping my LinkedIn up to date. So definitely not LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the social media that I hate the most, to be honest. I'm always like, oh my God, LinkedIn. Okay, have to do it. I'm much better at Instagram, quite honestly. I prefer that, even though that I also have my challenge with Instagram, and people can find me there at Samuel Rubin, V as in Vicente, my last name, or Victoria Alberta. But I we post all the updates for the Entertainment and Culture Pavilion on social media as well. And we also just released the Substack with the communications team is doing a great job at sending periodic updates and keeping everyone up to date. So if someone wants to be, connected with what we're doing around COP or any of those events, I think the Substack is a great way to stay in touch.
Awesome. Awesome.
Great.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, Samuel, and keep up the good work. I know you've got a busy fall ahead of you. So
you too.
Yeah, looking forward to keeping up and following your progress.
Thank you.
Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Social media is by Picnic Social. Our editor and producer is Rachel Werble.